Have you ever seen a pig in a courtroom? How about a rat on trial for its life? It sounds like something out of a cartoon, but for centuries, this was a very real and very serious part of the legal system. Welcome to the unbelievable world of animal trials in the Middle Ages. Believe it or not, from the 13th to the 18th century, animals could be charged with crimes, given a lawyer, and sentenced just like humans. We're talking about everything from murder to theft to property damage. Historians have documented over 200 of these bizarre cases across Europe involving dogs, cats, horses, and even insects like weevils and locusts. It's a chapter of history that's so strange, it's hard to believe it even happened. So, let us dive into some of the most famous and baffling cases and try to understand what on earth was going on. Let's start with perhaps the most famous case, the pig of Falaise. In 1386, in a town in Normandy, France, a pig attacked a child in the public square. The injuries were so severe that the child unfortunately died. Now, you might think the story ends there, with a tragic accident. But not in medieval Europe. The pig was arrested, imprisoned in the local jail, and put on trial for murder. It was treated just like a human defendant. It had a lawyer to defend it, witnesses were called, and a formal trial was held. The court found the pig guilty. And the sentence? The pig was dressed in human clothes, taken to the public square, and executed by hanging. And get this, the executioner was paid the same fee he would receive for executing a human. This wasn't just a one-off event. Pigs were common defendants because they roamed freely in medieval towns and were large enough to cause serious harm. But it wasn't just large animals. Even the smallest creatures could find themselves in legal trouble. Take, for instance, the case of the rats of Autun, France, in 1522. The local farmers were fed up because a horde of rats was eating all their barley crops. So what did they do? They took the rats to court. A brilliant young lawyer named Bartholomew Chassigny was appointed to defend the accused rodents. Chassigny was clever. First, he argued that his clients could appear in court because the summons was only addressed to a few rats, not all of them. The court agreed and issued a new summons to be read from the pulpits of all local churches. When the rats still didn't show up, Chassigny argued that the journey to the courthouse was too dangerous for his clients. He pointed out that all the village cats were lying in wait, ready to pounce. He claimed his clients had a reasonable fear for their lives and therefore couldn't be expected to attend. The court was so impressed by his argument that the case was postponed indefinitely. The rats won, or at least, they never got sentenced. These trials were split into two main types. The first were secular, or criminal, trials for individual animals, like our pig in Falaise. These were usually for animals that had directly harmed a person. The second type were ecclesiastical, or church, trials. These were held for plagues of vermin, like the rats of Autun or swarms of locusts. The church would get involved because these pests were seen as a divine punishment or the work of the devil. The legal process was surprisingly similar. The insects would be formally excommunicated, a legal term for being kicked out of the church, and, in this case, the community. The church would issue a formal warning, ordering the pests to leave the area within a certain number of days. If they didn't comply, they would be cursed. In one case in Switzerland, a population of weevils damaging crops was ordered to move to a specific plot of land set aside just for them. The court even guaranteed them safe passage to their new home. So the big question is, why? Why go through all this trouble? Were these people just completely out of their minds? Well, not exactly. There are a few theories. First, it's about justice and order. In a world that often felt chaotic and random, dominated by famine, plague, and war, these trials were a way to impose human order on the natural world. When an animal caused harm, it disrupted the social and moral order. Holding a trial was a way to publicly condemn the act, restore balance, and show that justice was being served, no matter who the perpetrator was. It reinforced the community's values and the power of the legal system. It was a performance, a public spectacle that reassured people that their world had rules and that those rules would be enforced. The second reason is deeply tied to religion. In the Middle Ages, the line between the human world and the spiritual world was very blurry. Animals were seen as having a place in God's creation, and therefore, they were subject to God's laws. Some theologians believe that since the fall of Adam and Eve, all of nature had been corrupted. An animal committing a crime could be seen as an agent of the devil. By putting the animal on trial and executing it, the community was symbolically cleansing itself of evil and reasserting divine order. The church trials against pests fit perfectly into this worldview. The excommunication and cursing of insects was a spiritual battle against the forces of darkness that were threatening the community's livelihood. A third theory looks at it from a more practical, social perspective. These trials might have been a way for people to deal with difficult situations without blaming each other. For example, if your neighbor's ox gored your child, putting the ox on trial was a way to find a resolution without starting a feud between families. The blame was placed on the animal, not the owner. The community could come together, witness a formal legal process, and feel that justice had been done. The owner of the animal would lose a valuable asset, which served as a form of compensation, but they wouldn't be personally branded a criminal. It was a strange but effective form of social conflict resolution. As the centuries went on and the Enlightenment began to take hold, ideas about reason, science, and the nature of animals started to change. Philosophers like René Descartes argued that animals were essentially biological machines, incapable of moral reasoning or intent. If an animal can't know the difference between right and wrong, how can it be guilty of a crime? This new way of thinking slowly but surely made animal trials seem absurd and illogical. The last recorded animal trial took place in the late 18th century, and the practice faded into the historical footnotes it is today. But the legacy of these trials is fascinating. They give us an incredible window into the medieval mind, a world so different from our own. It was a world where justice wasn't just for humans, where the natural and supernatural were intertwined, and where a pig could have its day in court. It reminds us that our own legal systems and beliefs, which seem so normal to us, are also products of our time and might look just as strange to people centuries from now. What do you think? Was this a brilliant way to maintain social order, or just one of the strangest legal detours in history? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for journeying back in time with me to explore this truly bizarre piece of history. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more strange and fascinating stories from the past, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more unbelievable tales to share. See you in the next one.